He really won the family over. And my mother was very happy. But yet, I said, I can't, I couldn't tell him I loved him. And I didn't know what love was at that time. I didn't know what it was. Because I had 7 sisters, right? And all of them had been married. And somebody came and said, I love you. And told my daddy I'm a Christian. He'd come to the church every time it was open. Because they had to come to church. And then the next thing I knew, they were separating, divorced. And I didn't want that to happen. So I had to make sure. And I said, I have to let God tell me. So I don't know what it is. And I didn't. I said, I have to let God tell me. And so they said, well, he's going to leave. I said, so be it. If he leaves me, that shows it wasn't real. So the Bible made me know, again, all things work together for good. So if he couldn't wait, that's okay. That means if he could wait for 2 years or whenever God told me, then he was the one for me anyhow. And really, I did not need a husband at that time. That was the furthest thing from my mind, you see. And so...
When did you know?
Well, I woke up one morning. I had a dream. And, in the old days, they had these... they had these lions come out, and they had men in the ring like it wasn't men. What do they call those things in the olden days?
You mean like the gladiators?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the man would go into the ring, and then you would have a fight. And I saw my husband as one of those gladiators. And a lion was coming out to get him, and I woke up. And I realized I loved him. And I picked up the phone, and I called him. This was after 3-4 years. And I said, I love you. I said, I love you, I love you, I love you. Because I knew what love was. And I had tested him. He didn't drink, he didn't smoke. And he didn't do, he went to church. He was trained in the South with a Christian grandmother. His mother died when he was young. But he went to church, and he liked everything I love. He can clean better than me. He had to learn to clean houses down there. And he was in school, always learning, always reading, And he had been in college, Lincoln University, and he needed to finish that up, and I made him go back and do that. But I told him, I love you. I know what love is. And we got married. You saw the wedding pictures. And this is our 53rd year going on, 52. In June, July, it'll be 53 years.
And what's the secret?
And he had to go to see my daddy first, He had to go see my daddy, and my daddy said, spoke to him in the dining room. We were there, and my father asked him, well, what are you going to do? Why do you want to marry? And how she's going to live? And I remember one thing he said. He said, I'm going to put him on a pedestal. And he's kept me on that pedestal for 52 years. So that's what I try to tell our young people. Don't yield to them. If they love you so much, let them put a ring on your finger. Don't give, who was it said something about the candy store? That was on Tavis Smiley's. Did you see that? But anyhow, they give too much. And if you really want the gentleman to respect you, and I learned this from my nephew. He was getting married. And he was going around with a young lady all the time. And so he said, he's getting married. I said, oh, you're getting married, Larry? I said, you're marrying so-and-so and so. Oh, he said, oh, no. He says, Auntie, you have to understand, there's some girls you play with and some you marry. And I tell that to all our young people. If you let them play with you, they're not going to marry. They don't need to. You see? Mm-hmm. So if you really want to get married, and I've helped many, just tell them that, no, don't answer the phone. And just tell them, And if they want you, if they really love you, they will call you, you see. And they will respect you no matter what. Now, my husband had to love me. Well, he would have gone. He would have been there. But he had to love me and love who I was. And that was proven to me over and over again. Because even one of my own brother-in-laws told, she's going to be sick a while.
But he stayed.
And I've outlived the man that told him that. you see.
What's the secret of having a successful marriage, which obviously you have?
Well, the secret is to never get angry. To never get angry. To understand that you can't train a man after he becomes a man. You can't train him. Whatever traits he had when you met him, he's going to keep them. And I tell people, if you meet a person, wherever you meet a person, it can affect your marriage. If you met him on the street, that's where he's going to stay, always. If you meet him in a bar, don't expect him to stop going to bars after he marries you, because he's going to go back there. If you meet him in a library or school, then you see he's learning to do something, to study, to improve himself. So you be careful where you meet a person, because don't expect him to change him. You can change a little boy maybe when he gets, like a plant. You put a little spindling in the ground. You can train that to a certain point, but when it becomes a great big oak, you can't train it. Only God can deal with that oak. See, so you have to understand and not try to restrain him when you know where you met him. You see? Mm-hmm. And I tell them to be very careful about that, because go to libraries, you see, go to church, go to places where you know a young man is interested in, because if you go to the bars, as I said, and people have come to me after the many churches I speak at and speak to this issue about how to stay married. Well, you're right, because I met my husband on the street and that's where he is all the time. Or I met my husband in a bar and that's where he is all the time. He's not going to stop if he's that age and he's been doing it. So you try to go to the schools, art museums, places where you know that you would like to have someone to share your values and your interests and so forth. And that's what you have to do first. And then you have to make sure. I didn't drink, so I didn't want anybody that was drinking. I didn't smoke, so I didn't want anybody they could do what they want, but I don't want anybody that's smoking. So I have to make sure and watch and see and find. You don't ask them. You just, just make sure they do the kind of things that you like, because you cannot change them.